I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power,
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am
I am
tired,
tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
Okay, here we go on a Monday, August 25th. Great to see you today. Hope you had a great weekend and are now ready to jump with both feet into the big new week and the big news of the day. Coming to you live on Free Speech TV, of course, nationwide and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKRTV. We're here in our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. President Obama back in town from 2 weeks minus 2 days on Martha's Vineyard. And to all of those people who say that this man takes too much vacation, we'll just point out that so far in his presidency, President Obama has taken a total of 138 days of vacation. At this point in his presidency, George W. Bush had taken 407 days of vacation. All in all, President Bush took 879 vacation days. That's like 3 years of his presidency he spent on the ranch in Crawford. Hey, some good news for a change out of the Middle East. On the same day that funeral services were held in New Hampshire for American photojournalist James Foley, executed last week. Another American hostage, Peter Theo Curtis, was released by a different group of terrorists in Syria where he'd been held for 2 years. Funeral services today in Ferguson, Missouri for Michael Brown, teenager Michael Brown. The Reverend Al Sharpton will speak. We're still waiting to hear from the grand jury as to if they will press charges against Officer Darren Wilson. And an earthquake in Napa County, California, 6.0 with a lot of damage. We'll bring you up to date on all the latest on that front and all the other news, and look forward to your calls at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate their children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Earthquake country, Napa County, California. Pretty scary stuff. I've been through a lot of them. Hey, good morning, everybody. What do you say? Hello, hello, hello. Great to see you. It is Monday, August 25. Here we go with the Bill Press Show on a Monday, right after this nice long weekend. Hope you enjoyed it, made the most of it. President Obama back in town. Congress still out for another 10 days or so. We'll bring you up to date on all that's happening here in our nation's capital, around the country, and around the world. All eyes on Ferguson, Missouri again today for the funeral services for teenager Michael Brown. That and lots more to talk about. And as we eulogized one victim, American hostage victim, assassinated last week, we got the good news that another American hostage was freed yesterday. So lots to talk about on many fronts today. That's why it's good to have you with us. And we look forward to hearing from you. 866-55-PRESS is our toll-free number. You can also send us your comments, of course, on Twitter at BP Show or on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. And it's good to see you on our local progressive talk radio station network all across this great land of ours. Good to see you also if you don't have a progressive radio station near you on one of the two apps, either Tune In, it's all free, just download it, Tune In, find us on the Progressive Voices channel, or on iHeartRadio, of course, where you can link the Bill Press Show to any one of our great affiliates. Also good to see you on the video stream at youtube.com/TawkrTV and nationwide on Free Speech TV. If you got a satellite dish, you find us on DirecTV. No excuse then, listening or watching, no excuse for being here, for not being here, and for not following us. We're at you any way we can be. With almost the entire team here. Lisa Murphy still off for a day or so. Peter Ogburn.
Happy Monday, sir.
Wearing several hats this morning. Yes. How about it? Nats yesterday, huh?
Yeah.
Boy. And the day before.
And
I just want you to know that Carol broke her jinx. She and I went to the game on Saturday. Big win for the Nats.
Okay, everyone can breathe a deep sigh of relief.
Exactly. And yesterday they just killed the Giants. Man, I got to tell you, they are on a roll. Lost to the Giants Friday night, so it wasn't a total wipeout for the Giants, but they didn't look too good Saturday or Sunday. Alicia Cruz is here, got the phones covered. Ready for your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And Cyprian Bolding, our videographer here, as always, keeping us looking good on Free Speech TV and on Talker TV. As I mentioned, earthquake in Napa yesterday. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. I'll tell you, my experiences with earthquakes in California, pretty extensive and pretty close up. Today, all eyes on Ferguson, Missouri. The funeral services will be held today for teenager Michael Brown. Shot and killed, unarmed teenager Michael Brown, shot and killed by Officer Darren Wilson Saturday now a week ago. The Reverend Al Sharpton will speak today at the funeral services. The father of Michael Brown yesterday saying, for this one day, let's just have nothing but quiet and peace and nothing disturb the focus on the services for Michael Brown.
All I want is peace while my son is being laid to rest.
And that call for a peaceful day in Ferguson echoed by the Reverend Al Sharpton.
We don't want anything tomorrow to happen that will defile the name of Michael Brown. This is not about outrage tomorrow.
Yes, and I was with the Reverend Al Sharpton Friday evening. We talked about all the criticism about the president and his vacation. That's where we'll start here on this Monday. We'll also be talking to Scott Bland from the Hotline. Clinton Yates from the Washington Post will be here a little bit later as a friend of Bill. And we have a man coming in who has written a very important new book about atheism, saying he is an atheist, but he still believes in God. What's that all about? But first,
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. There is a nationwide recall underway for beanbag chairs. The beanbag chairs, manufactured by Ace Bayou Corporation, are recalling 2.2 million beanbag chairs. There have been two deaths reported in the beanbag chairs. Here's the problem. They have an easy-to-work zipper. The children have unzipped the beanbag and climbed inside where they then suffocated, so it's not child safe. A 13-year-old and a 3-year-old both died after an incident with the beanbag chair. The chairs are being sold in Meijer, Walmart, and other retailers, along with Amazon and other websites that you could buy them. So again, it's the Ace Bayou company that manufactures these beanbag chairs. 2.2 million of them are being recalled.
Wow.
Right?
Never thought about that.
Never thought about that at all. Yeah. In Valley City, North Dakota, there are not a whole lot of people that live there, only about 6,000. It's 45 minutes from Fargo, and a man named David Breck and his wife Kimberly opened up a new kind of coffee shop. It's called The Vault, and it is pay what you like. Pay what you like coffee shop, and it's all on the honor system. So they make the coffee there, and then they also have these Keurig or like instant coffee pods, and you go in, and if you need the coffee, you make yourself some coffee, and then you leave what you would like. And it's an honor system. There's nothing that sort of says you have to pay this or that. You just pay what you think you should pay.
I don't think they're going to be doing that at Starbucks.
No, I don't. I don't think that's a good business model for Starbucks. Right. And to the football world, where the Broncos found out that their kicker, Matt Prater, one of the best kickers in the NFL, by the way, is going to be suspended for the first 4 games of the season. Why would you think that someone would be suspended for 4 games, Bill?
Drugs.
He had a couple of beers at home.
No.
Here's the thing. Matt Prater has been in the league's alcohol program since 2011 because of a DUI charge several years ago. And so when he tested positive for alcohol, they've suspended him for 4 games. Somewhere Ray Rice just wishes that he had just had alcohol.
Yeah, for a couple of beers.
For a couple of beers.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Exactly.
No, that's not the end. I mean, how dare you?
That's all I have. Is that not it?
No. How dare you? You know.
Is there more to the story?
I always have to give my Lewinsky's update.
Okay, let's have it.
All right. You know, as some of you may be just joining us, in my little hometown, Delaware City, Delaware, I grew up on Clinton Street, and I've told you about the new restaurant that opened a couple of weeks ago now on Clinton Street in Delaware City, Delaware, called Lewinsky's. Yes, it's Lewinsky's on Clinton. You got all the double entendre you need in that name, Lewinsky's on Clinton. Well, the latest is my sister, who lives in Delaware City, went to Lewinsky's Saturday for the first time.
Oh, this is exciting.
So now I have the full report, and she said it was very nice, very fine. She had a great meal there, a lot of fun. The owner was very happy to welcome her. He's heard all about the fact that we have talked about it on the show, that we have sent a photo out of the front of the building, right, Peter?
We have. Yes, indeed. We got the photo there.
And she sent me a photo of a cigar. They offer cigars.
Of course they do.
Of course they offer cigars. We should tweet that photo out today.
We will.
And
my goodness.
And we've heard the waitresses wear blue dresses, and the bartender wears the black beret. And the owner was so excited that my sister was in the restaurant, and he has extended an invitation for us to broadcast live from Lewinsky's anytime we want. He said he will be glad to welcome us and accommodate. And he thanks us for sending so much business his way. Right. So there you go. So,
that's incredible.
So pick the day.
That's incredible.
We'll go to my hometown. And
we're already working on it, huh? Oh, man.
And we'll give you the Bill Press tour where I went to school.
The whole tour, huh? Yeah, perfect. I'm on board.
The different houses we lived in, and we could do the whole.
Holy cow.
This is your life. Yeah. Lewinsky's on Clinton. Just want you to know. So that is the latest, and we will we'll tweet out the cigar photo.
Yes, indeed.
You don't have to have a cigar when you go there, but they're offered.
It's just nice to know that they're there.
All right. Now you can hit the sounder.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, we're done now?
Yeah.
Okay, full court's over.
Our full court is over. Yes, indeed. And I'll tell you what else is also over is President Obama's vacation. He's back at the White House, got back about 10 o'clock last night. They've had a full day yesterday, went up for a hike, and made wrapped up that last day of vacation in style. And, of course, he comes back to a lot of criticism about the fact the Obama haters, right? I'll tell you one thing. The Obama haters never take a vacation, right? And so he came back amid a lot of criticism on two fronts. Number one, he should never have gone on vacation. And number two, he shouldn't take as much vacation as he does. Well, the Obama haters are wrong on both counts. Both counts. Yeah, we talked Friday about this. I do think he made a mistake in playing golf so soon after making that statement on James Foley. But, that's a minor thing. Overall, the Obama haters saying he should never go on vacation. Wrong. Breaking news, okay? Breaking news for the Obama haters. The world does not stand still whenever a president goes on vacation. I just want you to know that, okay? It just doesn't happen that way no matter who it is, no matter what president, no matter when they go on vacation. And it's also true that Ferguson would still have happened. There would still be a crisis on the border. ISIS would still have been trying to gain new territory in Iraq. And Israel and the Hamas would still have been fighting, even if President Obama had stayed in the White House. So, of course, he should take his vacation. We don't want a president who doesn't take any vacation. Good Lord. He needs some relaxation, and he takes it in moderate doses. That's the second thing. This president take too much vacations? Get out of here. I mean, let's just look at, and by the way, that he shouldn't have gone at this particular time, which is implied in that first criticism about never taking any vacation, because there was so much going on. I mean, who are these Republicans? They think we have such a short memory. Pappy Bush, George H.W. Bush, ordered the invasion of Kuwait, of course, to drive Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait, ordered the first Gulf War, and then the same day left for 25 days vacation in Kennebunkport, Maine. Boop. Nobody said a peep about that, right? Now, how about the fact that this president takes too much vacation? Again, wrong again. By this point, and again, we talked about this with the Reverend Al Sharpton on Politics Nation, MSNBC, Friday night. At this point in his presidency, President Obama has taken 138 days vacation. Total. By this point in his presidency, George W. Bush, 407 days of vacation. Overall, in 8 years, George Bush took 879 days of vacation. Now, figure that out. That is stunning. That is, by the way, that includes 79 trips to Crawford, Texas. Anybody who would go to Crawford, Texas for a day, as far as I'm concerned, is insane. But at any rate, 879 days, that's more than 2 years. He was president for 8 years. More than 2 years, he was not in the White House. He was on vacation. I mean, get out of here. Get out of here. So here's Peggy Noonan yesterday on This Week with George Stephanopoulos trying to make this point.
For him repeatedly to be showing for many months now that vacation and golf and all of these things are so terribly important to him underscores the original charge of a certain detachment and disengagement. Nobody begrudges a president going away, but people are impressed when a David Cameron, during a crisis like this moment with ISIS, comes back from his first day of vacation to do his job.
George Bush didn't come back when they warned him that al-Qaeda was planning on flying planes into buildings in the United States of America. He went bass fishing instead. So this is just absolutely crazy. The facts just repudiate anything the Obama haters are saying about his vacation. Again, I kept going back to that. Over 2 years of his 8 years of presidency, George Bush was not on the job. He was on vacation. So let's let the Obama haters just on vacation. Find another issue, okay? Find another issue, because on this one, you were just dead ass wrong. Your comments, your questions, 866-55-PRESS. John Adams, by the way, our second president, he left Washington and went to Quincy, Mass. for 8 months. So don't tell me about Barack Obama taking too much vacation. We'll be right back.
Streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TawkrTV. That's TAWKR-TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful?
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, And Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go at 26 minutes after the hour, Monday, August 25. Talk about all the criticism about the president's vacation. Very conveniently, by the way, Peggy Noonan and others were just so off track on this vacation criticism. They missed the point. Remember the very first year of President Obama's presidency, when he went with his family to Hawaii. Everybody piled on. I remember even Andrea Mitchell on MSNBC piling on, saying, "No, this was a big mistake to go to Hawaii for his Christmas vacation." I mean, come on, it's his home. He grew up in Hawaii. His grandmother was still alive at the time in Hawaii, and they were spending Hawaii with his Christmas with his family in Hawaii, where he grew up. I mean, of course that he should have gone to Hawaii. So they were just wrong from the very beginning. Peter, comments?
We do have some comments. Remember, we are on Twitter at BP Show, where Popeye says, "Hey, Dip S, because Bush took more vacation doesn't make it okay for Obama to do the same. He's supposed to be a better president."
You want a president that doesn't go on vacation? Yeah. I don't.
And Don Griffith said, "Bill, in all my years on this planet, I've never seen so much hatred for a president. This man has done more for the country than the GOP has in the past 6 years."
Good point. I wrote a book about it called The Obama Hate Machine. By the way, again, Peggy Noonan doesn't point out that the president came back to Washington for 2 days of that vacation, that 2-week vacation. And during the time he was on vacation, he gave 3 press conferences about Iraq, 2 about Ferguson, Missouri, 1 about James Foley, and all kinds of calls to foreign leaders and briefings that he received on national security issues. The man was on the job. Fear not. When we come back, earthquake in Napa, California.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing done. I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go on a Monday. 33 minutes after the hour, it is the Bill Press Show, brought to you today by the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. We all live better thanks to the good work of the men and women of the Teamsters Union under President Jim Hoffa. You can find more about their good work at teamster.org. Teamster.org. Yes, indeed. It hit home yesterday when I got a call very early in the morning asking if our house in California was very far from the earthquake. I didn't even know there had been an earthquake at that point. I was still in bed, but got up and checked right away. We were about 35 miles away from where the epicenter was. You know the story now. In the earthquake hit about 3:30 Sunday morning in Napa County, California. The epicenter was in the American Canyon area of Napa, which is about 6 miles south of the city of Napa itself, and which is the beginning of the Napa Valley, the wine-growing region. And it was a fairly substantial earthquake, 6.0 on the Richter scale. Significant damage in downtown Napa, about 15 to 16 buildings that have been red tagged. Gas lines were broken, water mains were broken. Several mobile homes I saw caught fire, were destroyed by fire. And there were some 120 people injured, 3 of them critically. I heard one report of a child death yesterday, but the papers don't talk about that this morning, or the internet doesn't talk about that this morning. Not sure whether that can be confirmed or not. And some damage in some of the wineries, but overall, very little damage to the wineries. And also, what surprised me about this earthquake was there were no reports of damage outside of Napa County. Usually the quake is felt, pretty far from where the epicenter is. But I didn't see any reports of damage or even that they experienced the earthquake in Sonoma County, which is right next door, in Marin County, where our house is in California. No damage at all. No reports anybody in Marin County even felt the earthquake. Or in Solano County, which is on the other side. They're the four counties, Marin, Sonoma, Napa, and Solano County, around the north side of the San Francisco Bay Area. Here is one winery owner, Andrew Brooks, who does talk about some damage in his facility.
50 barrels worth of wine, 3,000 gallons.
How much will that be worth to you?
It's expensive. It's in the tens of thousands of dollars for sure.
Yeah, 50 barrels. I mean, that is a lot of wine and a lot of that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. And I saw some pictures of some stores that just had bottles of wine on the shelf. It just all fell and shattered and just a total mess.
One resident talked about the fact she was in a hotel in downtown Napa. They had a big wine and food and beer festival. I think like the day, maybe not beer, but wine and food festival the day before. So a lot of tourists in the city of Napa over the weekend. This one tourist talks about how all the glass kept breaking in her hotel room.
The glass from the mirrors came and put shards and fragments everywhere. And so any time I tried to move, I got glass in my feet.
And another resident living in one of the mobile homes talks about that he thought it was so loud. That's one thing people, I'm going to talk about that in just a minute, but people don't realize you hear an earthquake before you feel it. And when it hits, it is really, really noisy.
I thought it was a plane crash. It was so hard and so loud and I jumped out of bed and I noticed this place was already up and noticed this place was on fire.
Yeah. Again, you know what? When you live in California and having lived there for 30 years, you just learn to roll, if you will, with earthquakes. I mean, it goes with the territory. And you don't think about it a lot. I mean, it's sort of always in the back of your mind. And then when it hits, you think, oh, my God, here we go again. I hadn't been long in San Francisco before I experienced my first earthquake. When we bought our property and built our house in Marin County, our house there is maybe a mile, maybe a mile and a half from the epicenter of the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, Olema, California. We live on Tamales Bay. Tamales Bay is the San Andreas Fault goes right down the middle of Tamales Bay. And if you go there today to the earthquake trail in the Point Reyes National Seashore in Olema, you can see a fence coming down a hill. They've left it just the way it was. The fence comes down a hill and it gets to a certain point, and then the fence continues 6 feet over to the left.
Oh, wow.
So you could just see where the earth split right there.
Holy cow.
You can see a certain rock on one side of the path and a different rock on the other side of the path. I mean, these earthquakes happen usually way, way, way below the surface of the earth. In this case, you can actually
see the movement
on the surface, how it moved. I mean, yesterday's earthquake was 6 miles below the surface of the earth. But so that's to see the traces of it of the 1906 earthquake is pretty remarkable. But the two biggest quakes I was in were first the Northridge earthquake, which did significant damage in Los Angeles. That's the one that a couple of overpasses on the Santa Monica Freeway fell down, and one big hospital out in Northridge was severely damaged. Carol and I were out in Malibu at a friend's house at the beach for the weekend. She had given us our little wooden cottage. And when that thing came through early on a Sunday morning, it was a Monday morning, I think. I forget, whatever morning of the week. But it was just like, you couldn't believe how loud it was. And to me, it was like being in a small little boat on the ocean in a big storm and just being tossed around, because that little house was just, and stuff was falling all over the place, And what can you do in the middle of an earthquake? There's really nothing you can do.
That's what I mean.
You can nothing is brided out. They say don't go outside. Okay, don't go outside. But you stay in the house could collapse on you.
Sure.
They say get in the door frame, right?
Okay.
That's
yeah.
Okay, you could be there, but still you could get hit by stuff, right? Or that could collapse.
And also you have to make it there, right? I mean,
and you have to make it there, right? And it's pretty intense for maybe like 20 seconds. And again, the noise is what I found so frightening. And you can actually, I remember one particular one in West Hollywood, and we were sitting in our townhouse. A friend was over, and you could hear the earthquake coming because it was making so much noise. It just sounded like a freight train coming down, and then it hit us, and you just have to kind of ride it out, right? The other big earthquake that I remember distinctly was the Loma Prieta quake in 1989. This earthquake was the strongest to hit the Bay Area since 1989. That was a 7.1. The Richter scale, I don't know the word for that. I forget the word for it. But it doesn't go up like 0.1, 0.2. It does. We call it that, but what do I want to say?
What are the increments that it goes up in, I guess?
Well, yeah, but it goes up incrementally, like 0.1, 0.2, but exponentially, in terms of force.
Right, okay.
Yeah. In other words, a 6.3 is much, much more severe than 0.3 points above a 6.0.
Got it, okay.
Okay, whatever the word for that is. So, but the 7.1, the Loma Prieta quake, was huge. That's the one when the Giants were playing in the World Series. And I was in Los Angeles at the time, driving into the studio to do my commentary, talking to a friend in Century City, part of Los Angeles, in a high-rise building, and she said to me on the phone, "Whoa, I just felt an earthquake." The earthquake was in San Francisco. Felt it in Los Angeles. I drove into the studio, went to the control room, and I was looking at the first footage coming in from the earthquake, and you could see a bridge collapsed, a part of a bridge collapsed. And somebody said right away, "Oh my God, the Golden State Bridge." And I said, "No, that's not the Golden Gate. That's not the Golden Gate Bridge. That's the Bay Bridge." He said, they're wrong about that. That's the Bay Bridge. And the news director turned to me and he said, "You're from San Francisco. You know that city. You know what's going on. Get on the set." And I was on the set doing
Holy cow.
Identifying video coming from San Francisco for like the next 5 hours. But that was a major.
That's scary.
That's where the East Bay Freeway collapsed.
Yeah, I remember. I remember
the Bay
that
Bridge.
one.
Yeah. So, boy, I'm just glad that there wasn't more damage in Napa County. It was pretty scary. They've got a lot of rebuilding to do there, but. It could have been a hell of a lot worse. It was also good that that happened at 3:30 in the morning, when not a lot of people around and people were inside. When we come back, we'll check in on the news of the day with Scott Bland from the Hotline.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear. We had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
Would you like it back?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat the threat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Here we go. It is now 11 minutes before the top of the hour. Again, President Obama back in town with a full plate today. He will certainly be, among other things, watching the events in Ferguson, Missouri. There will be 3 officials of the White House attending memorial services today for teenager Michael Brown, shot and killed in that confrontation with Officer Darren Wilson a couple of weeks ago now, about 10 days ago now. The Reverend Al Sharpton will also be speaking at the service today. Reverend Al Sharpton, who led a rally in New York on Saturday, linking the death of Eric Gardner at the hands of police in New York City with what happened to Michael Brown out in Ferguson, Missouri. As I mentioned at the top of the hour, Michael Brown's father yesterday asking people to just set this day aside, no violence, no protest, no nothing, just peace in Ferguson, Missouri, in memory of his son. Here is Michael Brown Sr.
All I want is peace while my son is being laid to rest.
And the Reverend Al Sharpton, again, who will speak at today's service, echoed that call for a day of calm in Ferguson.
We don't want anything tomorrow to happen that will defile the name of Michael Brown. This is not about outrage tomorrow.
And another strong voice heard in Ferguson, Missouri over the weekend, the mother of Trayvon Martin, appeared, and her message to the people of Ferguson was, forget the violence, forget the rage, stay focused on what you've got to do for your own community.
We want you guys to stay focused on what you need to do for your community.
Yeah, interesting too that one of the issues that have come out of while we're waiting to see whether justice is done in this case, whether charges are brought against Officer Darren Wilson. One of the interesting issues that has emerged out of Ferguson is the question of the militarization of police forces, local police forces. We've talked a little bit about this on the program, but now support is building here in Washington. New York Times talked about this yesterday in a big article on the front page. A headline in Washington, second thoughts on arming police. This goes back, as we've pointed out, to the 1990s when Congress thought, we got the perfect solution here. The Pentagon has so much leftover heavy military equipment from Iraq and Afghanistan, that surplus equipment, if you will. Let's give it away to local police departments, and they can use this for the war on terror in case terrorists move from the big cities, New York City and Washington, to other cities across the country. And now people are realizing, as Ray Kelly, former commissioner for the New York Police Department, recognized yesterday, people are realizing that the presence of this heavy military equipment has just the exact opposite effect they thought it would have. Instead of calming people down and helping restore law and order, it just stirs people up and can incite more violence. Here's former Commissioner Ray Kelly.
People get uneasy when they see Humvees, military vehicles, heavy weapons. I think the fundamental question is, what is the need? Do we need that equipment?
Do we need that equipment? Certainly the police department of Ferguson, Missouri did not need that equipment. That conversation, is going to be very front and center when Congress comes back in town after Labor Day, all a result of what happened in Ferguson, Missouri. It's the Bill Press Show on Monday, August 25.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Sometimes when I'm walking down the street, I'm not necessarily looking out and seeing all these water-wasting lawns and people that aren't as connected to their neighbors and their lives as they could be. I'm walking down the street looking, going, edible oases, rainwater, fed landscape, and just looking at the possibility of these sort of landscapes up and down the streets of neighborhoods and communities all across this world. Small actions do ripple, and they add up and they have a cumulative impact. And so when you're building upon your small mindful actions, you have the confidence and the ability to take on something a little bit greater. So that could be nice. This, in the context of where we're at as a planet with climate change and these really big issues, and people that are more disconnected and less skilled than ever, it becomes even more amazing and powerful how much of a solution this is to design these ecological gardens and to come together with shared vision and shared voice. There's never been a time where your choices have mattered more. Doing something as simple as us transforming a landscape creates a model that anybody could look at far and wide, and you're sharing food and connecting and building skills together in your own neighborhood. It's a richer way to live in normal times, but in the new normal of climate change and erratic weather and economic upheaval, it becomes essential. Whether it's me, you, Gandhi, Che, MLK, Willy Wonka, whoever, past, present, or future, The power of our daily actions is all that we have. And like our community said, give me a place to stand and a lever long enough and I'll move the world. And that's what those simple actions do. They move the world every day.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Top of the next hour, Michael Riley from Bloomberg News on the hunt for ISIS. And then Frank Schaeffer with a new book about why I am an atheist who believes in God. How can you be an atheist and still believe in God? Well, we'll find out. Peter.
Bill, you remember the name Bob Filner, don't you?
Oh, yes.
It was about a year ago that 20 women came forward and accused him of sexual harassment. Well, he has been hit with yet another sexual harassment lawsuit. It's his former executive assistant came forward and said that he offered several suggested unwanted advances when she was working for him. So another one comes out. I'm starting to think he might be trouble.
Well, he's no longer mayor, right? That's for sure.
No.
Now, what more can they do to him? I mean, and he just hasn't changed his ways.
Doesn't seem like that now.
Oh, Bob Ferguson. Yeah, I think you're right. I think he may be troubled. San Diego is certainly a lot better off without Bob Ferguson at the helm.
Bob Filner.
What am I saying? Bob Filner at the yeah. All right. Again, when we come back, ISIS, is it really the greatest terrorist threat we have ever faced? We'll find out.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Okay, here we go on a Monday, August 25. Great to see you today. Hope you had a great weekend and are now ready to jump with both feet into the big new week and the big news of the day. Coming to you live on Free Speech TV, of course, nationwide and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TawkrTV. We're here in our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. President Obama back in town from 2 weeks minus 2 days on Martha's Vineyard. And to all of those people who say that this man takes too much vacation, we'll just point out that so far in his presidency, President Obama has taken a total of 138 days of vacation. At this point in his presidency, George W. Bush had taken 407 days of vacation. All in all, President Bush took 879 vacation days. That's like 3 years of his presidency he spent on the ranch in Crawford. Hey, some good news for a change out of the Middle East. On the same day that funeral services were held in New Hampshire for American photojournalist James Foley, executed last week. Another American hostage, Peter Theo Curtis, was released by a different group of terrorists in Syria where he'd been held for 2 years. Funeral services today in Ferguson, Missouri for Michael Brown, teenager Michael Brown. The Reverend Al Sharpton will speak. We're still waiting to hear from the grand jury as to if they will press charges against Officer Darren Wilson. And an earthquake in Napa County, California, 6.0 with a lot of damage. We'll bring you up to date on all the latest on that front and all the other news, and look forward to your calls at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan.
And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
6.0 earthquake striking Napa County, California. Home territory for me. Hello, everybody. What do you say? It is Monday, August 25. Great to see you today. Hope you enjoyed the weekend and are ready to dive into the news of the day here on this Monday. We'll tell you what's going on here in Washington, D.C., around the country, around the globe, and most importantly, look forward to hearing from you at 866-55-PRESS and joining the conversation. We're here with you live from Washington, D.C., and our studio on Capitol Hill, on your local progressive talk radio station nationwide, on the radio apps. If you don't have a progressive station near you, you can find us on TuneIn app. It's free. Just download it. Same with iHeartRadio, and through iHeartRadio, connect with one of our great affiliates. We're also live with you on Free Speech TV nationwide and worldwide on our video stream at youtube.com/TawkrTV. Lots going on this morning. We'll dive right into it. Peter Ogburn, as always, leading up the team this morning.
Hey.
Lisa Murphy's got the day off, a little family emergency she's taking care of. Alicia Cruz is here on the phones, ready to take your calls again at 866-55-PRESS. Either give us a call or send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. And Cyprian Bolding's got the cameras on, the lights on, has us looking good on Free Speech TV and on Talker TV. And we're happy to welcome into the studio today, I think his first visit to the studio, Michael Riley, reporter for Bloomberg News here in Washington, D.C., particularly in the area of cybersecurity. Hello, Michael.
Nice to be with you.
Nice to see you. Thank you. Again, a quick look out in Napa. 6.0 is a pretty severe earthquake. Fortunately, there was not more extensive damage in Napa. 120 people injured. I don't think there were any fatalities. I heard a report of maybe one, but that hasn't been confirmed. Some property damage to downtown Napa. But rather limited damage to the wineries in Napa, which is what we're all concerned about, right? That's the first thing. Oh, my God, no.
Right, exactly.
To save our varietals. Some limited damage, though. Here, the Bouchain Winery, Andrew Brooks is the owner. They perhaps were one of the hardest hit.
50 barrels worth of wine, 3,000 gallons.
How much will that be worth to you?
It's expensive. It's in the tens of thousands of dollars for sure.
Yeah, 3,000 gallons of wine, Peter. That's
a good weekend.
I was going good weekend. I was going to suggest maybe a month's supply for the.
Well, I mean, for some people, maybe.
All right.
He's very upset. I mean, that's a lot of wine.
I know, it is a lot of wine.
That's not John Boehner, by the way, crying over the loss of all that wine.
No, his supply will be. I'm sure first thing that John Boehner checked in, right?
Yeah.
Red wine? They didn't get any red wine.
I'm surprised he didn't fly out there to assess the damage.
Again, we'll talk the serious issues about ISIS with Mike O'Reilly here at the top of the hour. And then we're joined at the half by Frank Schaeffer, author of a new book out called I'm an Atheist, but I also believe in God. Not sure how that works, but we will find out. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Peter always has the big stories of the day.
You got it. Just a couple of other stories making news. Alex Bellini is a man who calls himself a professional adventurer and motivational speaker. So for his next trick, he's going to pull off something that has not been done before. He's going to live on a melting iceberg off the coast of Greenland for 1 full year. Why would someone do something so crazy? Well, he wants to point out the urgent need for climate change action. He's saying that these glaciers are disappearing because of climate change, and so to prove his point, he's going to go and live on one by himself for a full year.
Yeah, lots of luck with that. What's he going to eat?
I'm sure he's going to bring some stuff with him. I don't know that he's going to bring a year's supply. Maybe he's going to learn to fish. Who knows? Who knows?
It's all for a good cause, but I'm not sure that's the best way to bring attention to it. And watch out for polar bears, by the way.
Yeah.
They may have another idea.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The MTV Video Music Awards were this weekend. They were last night. But before that, the fireworks really started when Suge Knight, legendary producer and label maker, was shot at an MTV Video Music Awards pre-party. He's okay. He will be fine. In fact, he walked to the police car to get help afterwards because, hey, he's Suge Knight after all. He's been through a few of these things before. Of course, this controversy comes from this party was hosted by Chris Brown, who I think might be a little bit of a problem.
And they thought...
Trouble seems to follow him, I'll put it that way, this Chris Brown.
Does it ever? But there were some reports that he might have been the target of the shooting, Chris Brown.
Yeah.
Happened in West Hollywood, California, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An area you know well.
An area where I used to live.
You never shot anybody there, though,
no.
So we should just clarify that. And hang on, no, one more story. The NFL preseason football continues, and over the weekend, the Rams took on the Browns, where everybody was wondering if Michael Sam was not only going to get playing time, but whether or not he was going to go up against Johnny Manziel. He did. In fact, he sacked Johnny Manziel, and after it was over, mocked Manziel by doing his trademark money celebration as Manziel laid on the ground. The Rams went on to win that contest 33-14.
So what a humiliation for Johnny Manziel to get sacked by a gay man.
And then get mocked with his own celebration.
Did it get recovered?
Ultimately, that's a great game.
So, Michael, with your reporting, I saw the story that the world in shock over this execution by beheading of American photojournalist James Foley. And it turns out that the guy who did it on the video is a Brit, right? A British citizen, they believe.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's questioning every assumption that you work with, but essentially you've got a video with a guy with a British accent narrating, and then you see the horrific acts on the video. The interesting thing about it is it's not just a British accent, it's a very specific East London accent. So they can actually get to a very particular geography of London. And that's what the UK authorities are doing right now. They're busy. They're about 500, they believe about 500 UK citizens who have gone to Syria and Iraq to fight or to sort of be in the theater. About half of those have come back. So you're dealing with a relatively small subset of 250 people or so.
That are over there, still there.
Right, that are still there.
Right, and they know them by name? They know who?
It depends. I think that they...
through what? Passport control?
Right, exactly. And they've spent a lot of time... Western intelligence in general is really concerned about this issue, the idea that jihadists can go, they get radicalized, but then they have a passport which gets them back into the country, and then the fear is that they can create cells and do bad things when they come back. So there's been a big effort by intelligence agencies in the U.S. and Europe to track these guys. So I think that's why they have a pretty precise number. I think the fear is, do they know everybody who's going over? This guy in particular, they seem to have at least a beat on. The UK ambassador to the U.S. was on the talk shows yesterday and said that they thought they were close to identifying who this guy was. And they have very specific ways that they can do that, and it's pretty impressive. There's a lot of experience with working with insurgent cells in Iraq and Afghanistan. So they've honed these techniques pretty well.
Right. Now, by the way, are there... I was curious when I read that this guy was a British citizen and that there are these 500. Are these people who have born in and grew up in England, or are these people like from Arab nations who have come to England and just become citizens?
It's going to be a mix of both. Yeah. So they might be first-generation immigrants. In other words, their parents might have been the ones who immigrated to the UK. In this case, this guy's got a spot-on East London accent. So he may have come as a child. He may have been born in the UK. But it's a mix of people who were. And then, through websites and other ways, through mosques, sort of radical mosques. There's a process of inculcation into some of these.
All right,
movements.
so let's talk about the hunt.
Sure.
Right? You see this guy, and we want to find out who he is and bring him to justice.
So,
what are the tools that they've got, and what are they doing right now? How can they track this guy down?
All right, on the face of it, the video doesn't really show you much. The guy is completely covered except for his
right,
eyes.
exactly.
You have a voiceover, but you'd be surprised how much information they can get. So they start with the voice and the pictures. The eyes give you a little bit because you can still, again, if you're dealing with 250 people, you might have passport photos of them. You can help match the eyes to those photos. The other thing is the voice. They'll have voice transcripts either through, again, the intelligence has been focusing on these guys, so they will have telephone intercepts, calls back into the UK. In some cases, they might have intercepts from the combat areas themselves, Syria or Iraq. But some of these guys have also posted on YouTube or in other social media sites, so they'll have voice prints. So right now, one of the
so all of their phones are tapped.
So in terms of ISIS in general,
I would hope so. By the way,
they're trying to watch those 250 people, especially
pretty closely.
ISIS is a group of tens of thousands of people. So and the intercepts are going to be focused on the leadership. But any calls that are coming back to families in the UK, especially from this group of 250 people, are going to be tapped and listened to. So they do have those kind of voice prints, and they're trying to match those. And they can do it with voice ID software, but it turns out that the human ear is actually better than the software at doing this. The NSA translators who used to listen to these transcripts of telephone calls day in and day out, they actually got better than the software at saying this is the same person when listening to two different video or audio clips.
Right. So I was going to ask you: is NSA assisting the?
Oh, absolutely.
The Brits.
The British have a pretty robust capacity. They have an NSA equivalent. GCHQ is what it's called, but it's about the 10th of the size of the NSA, and the NSA is both in terms of its resources and its capabilities, having worked in Iraq and Afghanistan, is certainly assisting. It's possible they might be taking the lead on it just because of the fact that James Foley was an American citizen and that their resources are so much larger. But they work hand in glove. They're all part of what's called the Five Eyes, and these are 5 intelligence agencies that work very, very closely together.
And where are we talking about that these people are headquartered? Iraq, Syria, both?
So both. Nominally, ISIS's headquarters is in Syria, but clearly they've expanded very, very quickly into Iraq. I think one of the first things that they will try and do is identify where this video was shot and when it was shot. If you can get those 2 points, and you can be surprised how closely they can get based on a limited amount of information.
Yeah, look, I've seen that video. I didn't watch the act itself, but it just looks like a barren piece of desert.
Right. So you start with a time. Keep in mind that, for example, they have the time when the video was uploaded, which will start to give them a range. They are also listening to leadership through intercepts of communications, both in satellite and mobile phones. And there's probably chatter about the operation and when it's going to take place and how you move the hostages around. All of that is being picked up. So that can get them to a very precise time. If they're lucky, the video might actually have a timestamp in the metadata. So there are different ways where you can get pretty close to a precise time. If they can get a precise time, you'd be surprised. That gives them a lot of information. So you can match that with climate, what's going on in terms of the region in the area. You can match it with shadows. So if you have a time, the shadows are going to be different in different places, even in areas as close as Syria and Iraq. So you can make some, and there's the landscape itself. You can make a lot of detailed analysis. And that's, over the last 72 hours or longer, that's what these teams have been doing, is that sort of close analysis.
Wow. It's fascinating that they'd be able to use these tools,
Yeah.
And hone in on this guy. Might it lead us to where the other hostages are being held?
It might, in the sense that it helps provide more information on particular hostage cells. And the guys involved in the James Foley execution are probably involved in some of the other hostages, both keeping them, moving them around, the logistics of it.
Well, at least one we know,
Right.
Steve Sotloff.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And so it does give you more and more information. My guess is that besides the leadership of ISIL, that's one of the things that they are paying most close attention to in terms of the intercepts and intelligence assets is where the hostages. I mean, we do have an example where they thought they knew where the hostages were. They sent in a special forces team, and it turned out they weren't there. So obviously, the intelligence isn't perfect, but that is an indication they're paying very close attention to try and locate where these guys are at.
Yeah, and get them out if we can. And before we take a break, finally, we've talked about 500 Brits who are over there. Maybe 250 have come back. How about Americans?
Yeah, there are some a smaller number of Americans. It's not as big, but there are estimates that it might be about half the number that have gone and are participating in various elements of jihadist movements, either ISIS or something else. And
about 100.
About 150 or so.
150.
So
why would they go?
I think it's the same. It's the same set of motivations as the Europeans who go. I think that there are people who, because of their background, because they come from Muslim families, are already interested in these subjects, and then they get online. There's a huge effort by jihadist groups to recruit online citizens, especially of Europe and the U.S., because they're looking for people who have the capacity to move around, who aren't necessarily going to be spotted every time their passport gets scanned by an airline.
Michael Rowley with Bloomberg News. Fascinating story about the hunt for the man who assassinated James Foley. And when we come back, more about, I'm really intrigued by these Americans who may be over there and what happens when they come back. Your calls, your questions, your comments, here's a good chance to do it at 866-55-PRESS.
Streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TawkrTV. That's TAWKR-TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university. And,
people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Atheism and God in the next half hour. Right now, talking about the hunt for the killer of James Foley, and which really is a broader question about Americans and British citizens who have gone to ISIS and gotten their training. And then, so my question is with these Americans, we know why they might go, right? But why would they come back, and why do we let them back in, and are we going to track them when they do come back in?
Well, they come back for multiple reasons. Some of them come back because they go, it's not exactly what they expected, they get disillusioned and they come back. Those people are probably the least ones you have to worry about.
Right.
Some come back because they are sent back with missions. We know that insurgent groups, ISIS including, have been focusing on trying to recruit citizens in Western Europe and the U.S. precisely because they have passports. They can go back and forth. They can move more easily. And if that's the case, then the FBI and other organizations have to be really vigilant about when they come back, what happens? Are they the disillusioned type who aren't going to engage in this activity, or have they been sent back with specific missions, sometimes really long-term missions, and do they have to be watched very carefully over a period of months or years?
I just hope that we would monitor everything that those guys are doing, for sure. Mike O'Reilly, good stuff, good reporting. Thanks so much for your time this morning.
Thanks very much.
For coming in.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
Streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TawkrTV. That's TAWKR-TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
Make it 33 minutes after the hour on a Monday, August 25. The Bill Press Show coming to you live from Washington, D.C. and our studio right here on Capitol Hill in Washington. We're brought to you today by the United Steelworkers and their international president, Leo Gerard. The United Steelworkers, the North America's largest industrial union, representing over 1.2 million active and retired members. We salute the good men and women of the Steelworkers Union and thank them for their support. Nothing more interesting to talk about than religion and God and faith and how those how that all intersects with our public policy and political process. Our guest this morning, who is right in the middle of all of this, has written in his new book, "Why I Am an Atheist Who Believes in God." Talk about a provocative title. Frank Schaeffer is the author who joins us in studio this morning. Frank, it's good to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Bill.
So you have made a very interesting journey from growing up son of an evangelical minister. You were part of the religious right and have transitioned out of it.
Yeah, or another way to put it would be fled and or escaped.
Right. Well, congratulations for doing so.
Thank you.
How did you do so? How did you see the light?
Well, I was in my early 30s. My dad died back in 1984. And basically, I was someone that had to choose to follow the nepotistic tradition of so many evangelical right-wing groups. You know, you check them out. It's always a son or a wife or someone who inherits the mailing list.
Yeah.
If not the Holy Spirit. But, you know, keeps it all going. And I was very good at this. I was the keynote speaker at the Southern Baptist Convention. The year that Ronald Reagan got up and addressed the Christian Broadcasters Association, I was a speaker on that platform as well. We were really in the middle of it. Jerry Falwell lent us his jet that we were flying around the country, and Dr. C. Everett Koop, who became Surgeon General, was someone who made a film series that I wrote and directed called Whatever Happened to the Human Race that they showed right up here on Capitol Hill in the Rayburn Building, with Jack Kemp hosting and others. So we were in the beginning.
You were right in the
we were in the beginnings of what I'll call the merger of the religious right and the Republican Party.
Mm-hmm.
And it hadn't been formal then. We were outsiders knocking on the door, agitating for anti-abortion causes and so forth. But the insiders kind of were using us to energize evangelical votes, bring in blue-collar Roman Catholic voters. But
and
the relationship,
you were able to take over the party.
We did.
Really.
We did. And
I mean, Pat Robertson even ran for president.
Correct. And then, but we were kind of outsiders. And then when my dad died, I really began reconsidering both what I believed as a Christian. I just didn't buy the fundamentalist rhetoric anymore. I mean, bluntly, it didn't seem true to take a literalistic interpretation of Scripture. Secondly, I really began to have a pangs of conscience to understand when, we kept targeting people as the enemy, whether it was feminists or gay people, whatever, and this didn't sit well. And then I had real creative ambitions, and I wanted to write novels and make films. And frankly, you can't go to a worse desert island than the religious right if you're a creative and artistic kind of person. These people are not into the kind of freedom of thought necessary to nurture art. So for those reasons...
Don't appreciate it, don't tolerate it.
No, plus my marriage was going to smash up. I mean, I was turning, frankly, just, I may be a jerk anyway, but being a religious right activist on the road 6 months a year, haranguing people, yelling at them, and then going home and trying to be a decent father and husband, this is a disaster. So for all those reasons plus some, I began a journey out and wrote some novels like Portofino and others that sold well enough to give me permission to do more. And then a few years ago, wrote a memoir called Crazy for God. That actually,
Crazy for God really put you on the map,
right,
I think. Huh?
Right.
Yeah.
And Jane Smiley gave it a great review for the Washington Post, and Christopher Hitchens and other people responded. And it was from that this book, Why I'm an Atheist Who Believes in God, kind of came out of my own response to all the folks who were writing, saying, okay, what do you believe?
Yeah. So what do you consider, so today, are you an atheist?
No, not by any means. But I am someone who put it this way, if my journey has taught me anything, and I don't impose this on anyone else, it's that I reject labels. I reject labels. I think labels make us feel safe and part of a group. But look, the way I put it in the book is this. I've never actually met a Christian or an atheist, or for that matter, a Jew or a gay person or a straight person. I've met people as conflicted as me who are on a life journey, and if you ask them what they think about an issue, the only accurate answer is, this is what I think about this today, because 10 years ago, I might have thought something different. 10 years from now, I might be a different person. I was just at University of Oklahoma speaking, and I looked at a rather big audience there, a mixture of, atheists and students and Christians and others who had shown up who were interested in this book. And I said, I'll guarantee you one thing, whether you agree or disagree with me tonight, just remember one thing. 10 years from now, there are Southern Baptist kids here who will be atheist authors. There are convicted atheists who think that you found the answer in the kind of in your worldview, who are going to be right-wing evangelists and all points in between, because we all are on a journey. So essentially the title, Why I'm an Atheist Who Believes in God, really is a title that essentially says, look, instead of trying to find the answer to everything, embrace the paradox, find some peace in not knowing, as well as always trying to be certain sure. And I guess partly it's a psychological reaction of mine coming from the religious right, where we were always kind of grandstanding on, this is the only way to look at, say, gay people. This is the only way to interpret who Jesus was. If you don't believe this theology, you're going to hell. Basically, the message of my book is the theology is secondary to content of character. I mean, if you're a Christian, would you rather be slapped in the face by someone who you agree with theologically, or given a cup of cold water by an atheist, and vice versa? So, the book basically tells stories about my children, my grandchildren, my own life journey, but the point of it is to say, listen, enough with the labels already. Let's just pretend we're having a drink together and talk about what it means to be human, and at the same time try to have faith while at the same time having rational doubts.
And the book is, again, Frank Schaeffer, Why I Am an Atheist Who Believes in God. We'll put a link up on our website for purchasing the book, but of course you can get it at your local bookstore or Amazon.com or any of the internet sites. Frank, so how do you see or do you think there's any role? What fascinates me is the link of the relationship between faith and public policy.
Right.
And there are some who really believe that their religious beliefs allow them kind of to dictate what the laws of this land ought to be. I mean, almost a Sharia mentality, if you will. And there are others who just think that it should color or influence, their work in the political realm, so to say. Do you see any role for faith in politics?
Sure, I do. I see a huge role, and the first one begins with the humility that hopefully comes with believing that you are not a perfect person and that you have to work to be someone who you'd want to be stuck on a desert island with. One of the sections in the book, I talk about public policy very openly. I have several chapters in the book on public policy and faith. For instance, I point out that how ironic it is that in this country that is churched, 50% of the population says they go to church, particularly in the southern states. You have people running on the Christian ticket. They believe in God and the whole litmus test of moral values and family values. These same people are cutting food stamps. They have undermined the Obama presidency and the president's attempt to reform health care. And yet if you look, say, at Denmark, where you have less than 2.5% of the percent of the population going to church, you have social policy that if you just neutrally came at the objective teachings of Jesus Christ, forget the religion, but just said, let's try to see where these are being practiced on earth. How ironic that in Denmark, for instance, you have social policies that would mirror Jesus's feminism, where he, for instance, tells Martha and Mary, enough with the women's work in the kitchen. Get out of the kitchen and just come talk to me. He espouses equality. This Samaritan woman at the well, he says, it doesn't matter what tribe you belong to. Tribe and even correct theology is nonsense. It's spirit and truth. He talks to the Pharisees and the others, and he says, hey, listen, you have the Torah all wrong here. The only thing that matters is, are you learning the lesson of empathy? You have heard it said, but I say. And then the but is a big word. So where would you look around the globe and say someone understood this? Well, weirdly enough, it's what right-wing Americans would call socialist, godless countries like Denmark, Holland, Finland, where my daughter has just brought up her children. So there's an irony there. So one thing I point out in the book...
They may have more Christian public policy than this land, which calls itself a Christian nation.
Right. So we all go to church, and we basically are disciples of Ayn Rand and a scorched earth policy of selfishness. The Danes don't choose to go to church, and yet the strange thing is, you know perfectly well if you compare the actual call of the gospel to what is done to the average widow, orphan, indigent child, person who needs an education, sex worker for that matter, in Jesus' kindness to the whore that weeps and washes his feet with perfume and so forth. And, the fact is we are not living up to the rhetoric of the religious right, even if you believe that rhetoric, because we do the opposite. So I think a better argument than simply attacking the ugliness of what the Republican Party has become is to call to those evangelicals who say they take the teachings of Jesus seriously. And what I do in the book is I say, hey, listen, if you do call yourself a Christian, you have to at some point take seriously the fact that social policy has to reflect in some way what you say you believe. But we've gone in the other direction, including the racism that has been part and parcel of the entire obstructionism against Barack Obama. That I wrote a piece about, which has an inflammatory title, but I called it The Slow Motion Lynching of Barack Obama. And I just went through the history from day one of how the religious right or the shock radio folks and the rest just said, hey, listen, we're going to stop him from achieving anything. And a lot of these guys have done it in the name of Jesus. I mean, you see the bumper stickers for the National Rifle Association, the Tea Party, and calling for Obama's impeachment all on the same car. And that's very disturbing to me.
Yeah. By the way, I have written about that, too, in the book right over there called The Obama Hate Machine is what I called it.
People should read that and think about the fact that a lot of that hate...
Same point
but the point is, as you well know, a lot of that hate comes from people who say they're doing it in the name of Jesus.
Oh, believe me. Believe me. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Frank Schaeffer with a very provocative title for a very wonderful book, Why I Am an Atheist Who Believes in God. Your questions, this is a subject we talk about a lot here on the show. Your questions, your comments, welcome here at 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
Streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TawkrTV. That's TAWKR-TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight, it's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune into Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
This is the Bill Press Show.
12 minutes before the top of the hour, Frank Schaeffer in studio with us, author of many books. His latest, Why I Am an Atheist, Who Believes in God. Sounds like a contradiction in terms. You're saying it's not.
It's not.
No.
It's, first of all, it's a title. And it's supposed to do what it did. It made you smile, and you're looking at it.
No, I love it. It makes you think.
And makes you think. And what I'm trying to really say is, hey, listen, we are a contradiction in terms. You know, I'm a biological animal. I believe in evolution. I know the Big Bang happened. And yet, we have this sense of spirituality, meaning, art, love running through, around, and over, and under us. And rather than trying to make these conflicting parts of what it means to be a human rationally coalesce into one theory, you know, in a couple of short years, like the life of a fruit fly, and come up with your cosmological statement, just deal with it and embrace the paradox and say, yep, that's who we are. We're both things. We're rational creatures on one side and very irrational, crazy people who cry when we hear the fourth movement of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony on the other hand.
Right.
Deal with it.
You make me think of Pascal's famous wager, right? About believing in God.
Right.
If you believe and you win, then you win everything. If you lose, you don't lose anything.
Yeah, but on the other hand, the way to put it for me is that, you know, I don't believe in an angry God who's going to do to me what I wouldn't do to my granddaughter Lucy, who's just turned 6 years old, no matter what she did to me. I'm not afraid of a creator if there is one, but I want to fully embrace this life. Whether there's an afterlife or not isn't the point. And one way to not embrace this life is spend the whole time furious with people who you disagree with on ideology of religion, which no one can prove one way or another anyway. So let's just be human. Let's take care of each other. Play with your granddaughter. Enjoy a book you read. Paint a painting. Go to a concert. Look at a mountain. But don't sit there saying, if I don't resolve all this theologically or philosophically my life is meaningless. You're not going to be able to. In fact, I think certainty is a kind of a neurological disorder. I have a line in this book saying religion is a neurological disorder for which faith is the only cure. Again, a kind of a contradiction. But
no, I like it because I was just going to ask you don't strike me as the organized religion type.
No.
Do you see organized religion as a force for good, or?
I see it as a force for good and evil in that it's people. Just like I see the Republican Party as a force for evil right now because they have done something terrible to our first African-American president, trying to obstruct him all these years. But it's not entirely made up of evil people. It's made up of some misled people, who incrementally, like a frog being boiled, started out as anti-abortion or whatever it may be, and now they find themselves being anti-gay, funded by the Koch brothers, trying to help the oil and gas industry take over our world without paying a price for destroying the global ecosystem. People get into these things incrementally. So, for instance, me, I like sacramental religion. I attend a small Greek Orthodox church in my community. But if you ask me to describe the liturgy, I'd say for me, it's just as much the coffee hour and finding out that Anna Mamakis is ill and somebody needs to do something about it, or that my son, when John was in the Marine Corps back in the late 90s and early new century there and got sent to war after just volunteering in a high school lark, and my heart was broken. Who was it there to stand up for me? Well, a bunch of old guys who had been Marines in Korea and who comforted me. Where else would have I found them than in some community? So I say to people who avoid all religious community, hey, I understand you. A lot of religious community is nonsense and full of jerks and the theology is crazy, but you've got to find community somewhere or you're not going to be able to help others and be helped yourself.
Quickly, what's your impression of Pope Francis?
Up to the moment, knock wood, I like Pope Francis because he's basically opening some doors rather than closing them. Plus, I think a lot of evil and harm, I don't know what your opinion is on this, has come from people like Antonin Scalia and other Roman Catholics, for instance, who are in league with some of our more radically right-wing bishops, or people like Robert George of Princeton with all the things he does and these various shenanigans, have been working around to advance the agenda of the religious right.
Amen.
With a kind of a religious gloss to it. And Pope Francis has basically come up and stuck his finger in their eye and said, hey, if you're going to be religious, let it be about spirituality and love and forgiveness and temperance and all these other things, and not about trying to engineer the Supreme Court. So we have Hobby Lobby. Great achievement. We now will prevent women from getting contraceptives.
In the name of religion.
In the name of religion. And then 2 minutes later, in case anybody hasn't misunderstood it, Robert George's friends over at Christianity Today magazine and Gordon College, another Christian college, following that Wheaton College decision on contraceptives, they write a letter to the president saying, because we are Christians, we want to be exempted from civil rights laws that protect employment rights for gay people. So, when you look at this, in that context, I love Pope Francis because he's basically saying enough already.
Oh, yeah. And he has undercut the American bishops and said, get back on track.
Well, and these religious right nuts like Robert George operating out of Princeton and Scalia and the rest of them.
Frank, you're great, doing great stuff, too. I wish we had more time. I'm so glad you stopped by.
Thank you.
And I'm so glad you wrote this book. Again, it's Why I Am an Atheist Who Believes in God with Frank Schaeffer. Get it? Buy it. Read it, and hope we get to talk again.
Thanks a lot. I'd love to.
Thanks, Frank. I'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Out to Ferguson, Missouri, at the top of the next hour, President Obama back in town today with a busy day of meetings at the White House. He gets the presidential daily briefing at 10:30, followed by a meeting with Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel. And then this afternoon, he'll be meeting with his senior advisors. We are back at the regular briefing schedule today. Josh Earnest back from paternity leave. And our briefing today is set for 1 o'clock at the White House. I'll be there, and I'll tell you all about it tomorrow. Back on the ground in Ferguson, Missouri at the top of the next hour.
This
See you then.
is the Bill Press Show.
West here reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Aww, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look, your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
In Napa, California, residents still shaking from a 6.0 earthquake early yesterday morning. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to the Bill Press Show this Monday, August 25. Good to have you with us, and good to see you today as we come to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and our studio on Capitol Hill, right here in the heart of the action, bringing you up to date on the news of the day here in Washington, around the country, and around the globe. And looking forward to hearing from you about what it all means. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. The team is here this morning, almost everybody. Peter Ogburn. Hello, Peter.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Back to school day for a lot of kids.
Back to school day for a lot of kids, and people in Washington feeling good about the Nats having a big weekend and sending the San Francisco Giants out of town after smashing them 2 games out of 3. Carol and I were there Saturday for a big win.
I appreciate, by the way, that you waited until they lost, right?
Yeah.
Because they had that streak going.
We had the 10 games in a row, and then they lost Friday night. And so then we thought, now it's safe to go.
That's okay. And then they won when you went. You and Carol both were at the game.
Exactly.
Okay.
So Carol's the new good luck charm.
All right. All right.
For the Nats. Lisa Murphy's got the day off. Alicia Cruz is here, ready to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And again, if we're looking good on that TawkrTV, our worldwide video stream, it's thanks to videographer Cyprian Bolding. I mentioned the earthquake in Napa. As a Californian, I have lived through and experienced, maybe 10 earthquakes in the time that I lived there. It's sort of, you get used to it. It comes with the territory. Never really get used to it, but you know it could happen at any time. Comes with the territory. And one of the things for people who haven't lived through an earthquake, it shakes a lot, but it's also really, really noisy, as this one resident pointed out.
I thought it was a plane crash. It was so hard and so loud and I jumped out of bed and I noticed this place was already up and noticed this place was on fire.
Yeah. That's a resident in a mobile home. There are several mobile homes destroyed because of gas lines breaking. And the firemen had a very hard time because one of the main water mains broke as well, so they couldn't get the water they need to douse the flames. There was minor damage for the most part. We think of Napa, we think of Napa Valley, we think of our greatest American wines. And the limited damage for the most part to the wineries there. Here's one winery owner, Richard Ward, where they did suffer some damage.
We're stacking them. We're separating the ones that are damaged. Probably, 50 or 60 of them that will need to be repaired before we can use them.
Talking about the barrels, about 50, 60 barrels of wine. Yeah, that's a lot of wine.
The shots of wine stores and liquor stores.
But the wine stores where the bottles were all just came off the shelves. Yeah,
smashed all these bottles of wine. It's just so sad. It just makes me cry.
Is that John Boehner?
It sounds like Boehner.
Oh.
Oh man, no. Yeah, it was ugly.
Yeah,
it was ugly.
That's a sound clip of John Boehner when they said he was going to have one less glass of red wine. Bad day for John Boehner, right? From Ferguson, Missouri, Huffington Post on the ground out there. We'll check in at the very top of the hour. And at the half, we'll be joined by defense reporter Leigh Munsil from Politico. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Breaking news this morning, as it appears as though Burger King is in talks to buy Tim Hortons. If you don't know about Tim Hortons, you've probably never been to Canada, where they revere it as one of their favorite restaurants. Tim Hortons, known for their donuts and coffee, whereas Burger King is not. Now, what's behind this big move? Well,
inversion.
Well, Burger King is talking about moving its corporation to Canada, which means it's a lower tax country.
Inversion.
There you go. That's what it's all about.
This could be one of the worst examples of an American corporation buying a smaller company in another country and then moving their headquarters to that other country to avoid paying U.S. taxes. Shame on Burger King.
Yeah, that would.
This is why I think we're going to see President Obama do something about this by executive order.
It'd be interesting. Yeah. It would make it the third largest fast food chain, by the way, if it went through with that. So we will keep you posted here as that deal continues to move. The Little League World Series is over, Bill, and unfortunately, the United States team did not win. Chicago.
But boy, they played a great game.
They did.
They inspired a lot of people. That great team from Chicago.
It was Chicago versus South Korea. South Korea got out to an early 8-1 lead. Chicago fought back in the final innings, made it closer, 8-4, but it was not enough as South Korea went on to win Sunday's Little League World Series championship game.
But the story of that Chicago team was so heartwarming. They had worked at it for so many years to get there and to come so far. I mean, we all should be really proud of them. And what I love is they're going to give them a homecoming celebration. And big welcome. Rahm Emanuel, the mayor, everybody out there to greet this team when they come back to Chicago. I don't know whether that's today or whatever, the next day or so, if it's not today.
Look at it this way. They're the best Little League team in America.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Maybe they lost to South Korea, but they're still the best in the country.
Absolutely. Great for Chicago.
And it's Monday, so we'll take a look at the weekend box office where Guardians of the Galaxy continues to be strong. They are back in the number one spot. They only made $17.6 million this weekend, but that brings its total domestic gross to $251.9 million, making it the largest, highest grossing movie of the summer. Considering we saw Captain America, we saw a Transformers movie, that's big doings. Guardians of the Galaxy going to be the number one movie of the summer.
Now, you saw it twice the first weekend. Have you seen it how many times since?
I have only seen it twice.
Oh, okay.
There have been rumors of the third time, but we have not actually followed through on that.
Oh, all right. Yes, indeed. It is a big day in Ferguson, Missouri. Today, funeral services for teenager Michael Brown, and the White House is actually sending 3 special assistants to the president out for those funeral services as well. In addition, the Reverend Al Sharpton will be speaking, and the community is expected to gather in great numbers. Yesterday, the father of Michael Brown Sr., just called on the community to focus on remembering Michael Brown today and no other protest, no other action.
All I want is peace while my son is being laid to rest.
The Reverend Al Sharpton yesterday, again in Ferguson, to speak at that memorial service today, echoed the same cry for a day of peace in Ferguson, Missouri.
We don't want anything tomorrow to happen that will defile the name of Michael Brown. This is not about outrage tomorrow.
Meanwhile, Huffington Post has announced that while as the situation calms down in Ferguson, Missouri, and reporters start to leave Ferguson and move on to other assignments, they're going to stay on the scene. Huffington Post has named what they're calling a Ferguson Fellow to stay and continue to report on Ferguson, Missouri over the next year or so. And that person is Mariah Stewart, the new Ferguson Fellow of Huffington Post, who joins us on our news line this morning. Hello, Mariah. Good morning. Good to talk to you, and congratulations.
Hi, thank you, and good morning to you.
What is the scene in Ferguson today, you find, and over the weekend? Have things quieted down?
Things have quieted down tremendously since the initial rioting and rallying. This week the crowd's been dwindling. The largest turnout I've seen all week was actually on Friday night and yesterday at Forest Park for Peace Fest.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. And is for reporters, is it easier now to do your job? Are you able to get access to most of the places you want to get to? Yeah. There's not a big media frenzy. A lot of people have packed up and left. And what I'm finding is actually a lot of people who are reporting and interviewing, but they're not connected to any news organization. Oh, really? Huh.
Yes.
Now, I'm curious, why would Huffington Post want you to stay on the job? I mean, normally what we do, we rush into areas where there's a big story. Like today, everybody's rushing. A friend of mine yesterday, I was supposed to have brunch with, or I had to hop on the plane and rush to Napa, California, right? And report on Napa for a couple of days and then get out of there and get on another plane and rush to the next bit of breaking news. So why do they want you to stay in Ferguson? Why does Huffington Post want you to stay in Ferguson?
I believe Huffington Post and myself definitely just want to follow the story. We want to see how the community changes after, the media has gone and left. We want to know, are they really going to give us hope, or are they going to continue this unity that we've been seeing from them since the incident happened? And it's important, too, because our nation can learn a lot from this experience.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right, and I really salute Huffington Post for doing this. And I wish we did this in story after story after story after story after story, right? Yes. Because that's what really counts. As much as whatever the story is, the immediacy of what happened, when, and why is what changes or what improvements, right, or lack of improvements followed those stories. And I think as an American people, we're too quick to move on, and as journalists, we're too quick to move on too. So I want to ask you about the kind of change that you might see. We've talked, and I'm sure you've written about, for a community of 30,000, that's 68% African American. There are so few African Americans on the city council or on the police force or on the school board. Do you see that? Is that one of the kind of changes you're going to be monitoring?
Oh, definitely. I'm going to see if there's going to be a change in that, because at these little protests and gatherings around Ferguson, there's a lot of debates, and you'll hear a lot of protesters say, hey, get out and vote, because that's the way you're going to change. So, and they'll actually speak down about marching and say, this isn't changing anything, go be proactive. Because they feel they could stop the mayor. But they have been preaching about that, so I'm definitely going to follow up about the voting.
Well, I'm curious about whether the lopsided representation, if you will, of whites versus African Americans, is it because African Americans have run for office and been consistently defeated, or because they've not been challenging, running for these offices? And will more people, if that's the case, will more people now step up from the African American community?
Yeah, I definitely think they haven't stepped up. It's a little bit of both sides, actually. Yeah, and I think that's just what it's going to take.
Yeah. How about changes? We're talking to Mariah Stewart, who has just been named the Huffington Post Fellow, to stay on the beat, to stay on the job in Ferguson and report to us through Huffington Post the changes that take place, hopefully for the better, in this community after the killing of teenager Michael Brown. What about changes in the police force, Mariah? Do you think there'll be any more diversity in the police force, and maybe some changes in the way they respond to events?
That's a good one. I'm not. Oh man, who knows? But I know I am going to cover it to see. I'm really hoping that there is, just because it has been. You can feel such tension amongst these people of the community and the policemen. And you know what's funny too is every day these police officers are changing their tactics at how they cover security for these protesters. And I could say they're trying, but it almost seems a little disingenuous sometimes, because I know, like the other night, Saturday night, I was out there talking to a young man. Police officer walks up to him and says, "Hey, how long you had your dreadlocks for?" And I kind of felt like under other circumstances, this police officer would never have asked for that.
Right.
So it's. I would like to see change. I want to say they're trying, but it seems a little bit forced.
Yeah.
But it was nice. I definitely want to follow.
Well, again, I think there's an awful lot that we as a nation can learn from Ferguson, Missouri, and I'm so glad that you're going to be on the scene. Look forward to your reports from Ferguson. Mariah, again, congratulations on getting this big assignment, and we'll talk to you again down the road.
All right, thank you. Nice to hear from you.
Thank you, Maria Stewart, the new fellow. I've never seen this happen before with any news.
It's
story.
a good idea.
It's a really
smart
idea.
idea.
You know, every once in a while you'll see in a paper on the news, they'll say, "Remember, we reported this like a year ago. Let's sort of check in again." But to do this as a regular beat is a very, very good idea. Mariah Stewart, the fellow from Huffington Post, who will continue on the ground in Ferguson.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction,
America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Did you commit to change the world?
This is the Bill Press Show.
27 minutes after the hour now. At the half hour, we're going to be talking with Leigh Munsil from Politico about ISIS and the hunt for the killer of photojournalist James Foley. In talking with Mariah Stewart from not Martha Stewart. That's
Totally different segment.
Totally different segment. I didn't have a chance to ask her about the fact that there have been more and more rallies now. Not a lot of people, but getting a little bit of attention of supporters of the police officer, Darren Wilson. And there was another such gathering over the weekend. Here's one woman, Darren Wilson supporter, who won't give her name.
The media will inevitably ask for my name, others' names and relationships, job titles, stories, etc. You want my name? My name is Darren Wilson. We are Darren Wilson.
And she says they're going to raise as much money as they can for him.
We are exclusively here to support Darren Wilson, and we have no desire to engage in the negativity and hate which has paralyzed Officer Wilson's ability to pursue justice.
Yeah, I don't know any way that anybody has interfered with Officer Wilson's ability to pursue justice. No charges have been filed against him. He is on administrative leave with pay. And by the way, there's one other big difference. He's alive. Michael Brown is dead.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TawkrTV. That's TAWKR-TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour, Monday, August 25. The Bill Press Show from our nation's capital and our studio on Capitol Hill, brought to you today by AFSCME, the good men and women of AFSCME under President Leigh Saunders, the largest public employee and healthcare workers union in the entire country, making America happen. And you can find out how they're doing so at their website, afscme.org, AFSCME.org. Salute the good people of AFSCME and thank them for their support and sponsorship of the show for several years now. The world's still reeling from that horrific video released last week by ISIS, the beheading of American photojournalist James Foley, and now underway the search for his killer, believed to be a British citizen. Reporting on ISIS for Politico, defense reporter Leigh Munsil joins us on our news line this morning. Hello, Leigh. Good to have you with us.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
What are the chances, what do we know about the assassin, if you will, or the executioner of James Foley, and what efforts are being made to track him down?
Well, at this point, we know a tentative ID. They wouldn't really talk about it yesterday. There are a couple of different intelligence officials that were on the Sunday shows yesterday, and they kind of touched on it, and they said we were close to an ID, but they didn't want to go any farther, although I've seen some reports, unconfirmed reports, obviously, but some reports that it's a British citizen, and they give a name, but obviously you hesitate to repeat that stuff if you don't know for sure. But he's a guy that they already have kind of known is a part of ISIS or ISIL. And so he's been fighting with them for a while, and is fairly a familiar name. But also there was a sense also on the Sunday shows when they were talking about this, about the fact that it doesn't really matter who specifically killed him, that it was an order that came from the top of the group, and it should be seen that way. So it's kind of interesting that now there's a name with the face in the video, with the covered up face in the video, but there is also the concern that they'll lose the focus, or that we'll lose the focus if we focus too much on the killer.
If they are able to identify his killer, is the plan to kind of try to swoop in and get him? I mean, I guess what's the point, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, the point would be that obviously that person would be considered, a criminal and could be at some point targeted or found or arrested or anything else in the same way. I mean, obviously not in the same way, but the White House has talked about how they consider this a terror attack on the United States, and therefore, he could face charges, that sort of thing.
Right. Now, ISIS itself is headquartered in both Iraq and Syria, correct?
Yes. Even more so in Syria as far as the headquarters goes. They've pushed a lot into Iraq, but
Right.
Syria is where a lot of the kind of command headquarters and such are.
Okay. Now, last week we saw the head of the Joint Chiefs, and we've heard several members of Congress also talk about that we're never going to be able to really shut down ISIS unless we're willing to bomb ISIS targets inside of Syria. Is that in the cards? Can we expect that soon? And will the president need congressional authorization to do so?
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion of that bombing in Syria or getting involved in Syria in any way would be necessary if we want to completely eradicate ISIL. So that's definitely on the table. I mean, the fact that it was brought up by Chairman Dempsey says that it's something that the military at least has seen as a tactical option. And then from there, the president will have to be willing to do that. And it seems like he's been favoring a limited role, although these airstrikes have been expanding. So if it turns out that that's something that we decide to do, I would imagine the president will probably want to go to Congress for authorization, but also it may or may not happen. It's not for sure that would happen.
And ISIS is do people generally? I mean, I heard what Secretary of Defense Hagel last week said, that this is the greatest terrorist threat that we have ever faced. Is that generally accepted in the intelligence community? ISIS more dangerous than Al Qaeda, which it kind of flowed out of?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. You hear people talking about this a lot now that Chuck Hagel has said that. He said it's the most, or he said this is like nothing we've ever seen.
Yeah.
It was the exact quote. And I think that may have been overblown a little bit when people kind of retell his statements. The point that he was making is that this group has a lot of people. They've spread through a large swath of territory, and they threaten Iraq in a way we haven't seen a terrorist group kind of threaten Iraq and the surrounding area. And certainly now there's lots of discussion, especially by members of Congress, about the threat to the U.S. homeland, and that's a concern. But I think at this point what we're facing is a little bit different. It's not necessarily less than Al-Qaeda, but it's just different than Al-Qaeda, which is, I think, the point that Chuck Hagel was making and that others have made. Michael Morrell, which is the former deputy head of the CIA, yesterday was on the Sunday shows, and he said this is the most complex threat he's ever seen, and that what he anticipated, he said there were kind of three things we need to worry about. Number one would be that this group would inspire a homegrown terrorist to try and do something here. Number two, that these people with just kind of one by one, these people with passports, U.S., Canadian, Western European passports that are fighting for ISIS or ISIL now would come back more quickly and try to mount a threat or try to mount an attack here. But then the third one that he talks about, and this is the biggest concern, but he put a time frame of the next 2.5 to 3 years on this, is perhaps as a conflict winds down over there in the Middle East, at some point this group, if they take the time to plan it, could try to mount a 9/11 size attack in the United States, as Al-Qaeda did. But that obviously took a lot of time and effort and planning, and right now this group is very focused on the places that they're fighting currently, and so absolutely they're a concern, absolutely they're a threat, but that kind of large-scale attack is a couple years out, at least according to Michael Morrell.
One of the things that certainly the operations over there in that part of the world are very, very complex. But one of the complexities, it seems to me, is that if we're successful in defeating ISIS and wiping them out, and that seems to be the intent, and doing so in Syria, that would actually strengthen the hand of President Assad of Syria, whom we'd also like to get out of office, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's kind of the complicated factor about getting involved in Syria, and that's why you're going to hear members of Congress not like that idea or not like the idea of working with Assad to bomb in Syria. Especially, there was a lot of discussion yesterday of do we need to, coordinate with Assad before the attack? And I think others, that are more supportive of the idea are saying that giving him a heads up isn't the same as coordinating with him, and it's not the same as, fighting with him or trying to help him. But yeah, that's obviously what complicates all of this.
And what do we know about the release of Peter Theocritus, this American hostage, who was released yesterday on the very day that the memorial mass was being held up in New Hampshire for photojournalist James Foley? He was not being held by ISIS, correct?
I don't believe so. I only heard the very kind of early details of that, but I think that he wasn't being held by ISIS, and that ISIS still holds several journalists, or at least one American journalist, and others, and they haven't started just kind of letting people go yet.
Yeah, he's being held by a different group of terrorists inside of Syria, had been held captive for 2 years, and his release engineered in part by assistance with the government of Qatar. And finally, I guess I've heard you. Which is correct, Leigh? Is it ISIS or ISIL?
I keep getting asked that question, and I think everybody has a different answer. The last I heard from the Associated Press, which is kind of the decision maker on this, is just IS or Islamic State, because it's a much more broad concept even than the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, which is what we were told, a couple months after they kind of bubbled on the scene, that was their name rather than ISIS, which would be the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, which is too limited as well. So the official ruling, I believe, is just the Islamic State, but also that gets confusing because you mix it up with groups that aren't this group at all.
Yeah, right.
So, it's kind of a difficult... Nobody really knows what to call it, but you heard on the Sunday show yesterday there was a lot of ISIS, there was a lot of ISIL. So either one, I think, at this point is kind of being used pretty broadly.
I know. The White House continues to say ISIL, the CIA, the administration says ISIL. Most reporters are using ISIS, and now they say Islamic State. I wish we could just... The beginning of understanding of this problem, right, would be just agreeing on what to call them. We'll have to work on that.
That would be a step at least.
All right. Leigh Munsil, your good work at Politico. We thank you, and we thank you for your time this morning. Thanks, Leigh.
Thank you.
Defense reporter for Politico, Politico.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan. And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
Streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TawkrTV. That's TAWKR-TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go, 12 minutes now before the top of the hour. It is a Monday, August 25. Wrapping up with a few little recount of some of the stories that we talked about earlier in the program. And first is the update. I know so many of you are breathless for the update from the new restaurant in my hometown.
This is very exciting.
Very exciting. My hometown, a little town on the banks of the Delaware River, Delaware City, Delaware. And I grew up on Clinton Street in Delaware City, and the news about a month or so ago that we've been talking about here on the show, a new restaurant opening in Delaware City on Clinton Street by the name of, yes, Lewinsky's. Its official name is Lewinsky's on Clinton. Full of all the double entendres you can imagine. Yes, that and done so deliberately, of course. With, as we've reported, the waitresses wearing blue dresses, the bartenders wearing black berets, and they also hand out cigars, of course, at Lewinsky's on Clinton. Well, the breaking news is that my sister, actually, who lives in Delaware City, went to Lewinsky's for the first time Saturday night and reported in. She said it was a very interesting menu, had a great meal, and she was offered a complimentary cigar that goes along with the meal. And the owner was very, very pleased when she introduced herself as my sister, because he has heard from so many people that they heard all about Lewinsky's on Clinton through the Bill Press Show. And he has invited us to come to Lewinsky's on Clinton and do a live broadcast from there anytime we want. So
when are we going?
Well, I don't know. I have to check it out. Back to my roots.
Your
back to my hometown. Right. And have we yet? Or we're going to tweet out the picture of the
picture has been tweeted out.
The picture of the cigar,
complimentary cigar.
Another reason for following us on Twitter at BP Show. On another front, out in Las Vegas, Leader Harry Reid, a little bit of hot water. He was giving a talk, I think it was on Friday, late last week, to a group of the sort of the Asian American Chamber of Commerce in Las Vegas. And he made what he thought was a humorous comment about how smart the Asian American business leaders are.
The Asian population is so productive. I don't think you're smarter than anybody else, but you've convinced a lot of us you are.
I don't think you're smarter than anybody else, but you've convinced a lot of us you are. You can hear the audience laughed at the joke, but there were some people who criticized it as being very insensitive and perhaps even racist. Leader Harry Reid has abjectly apologized and said he's sorry he made those remarks, and he admitted he often says things he regrets.
Okay.
I think,
I mean, clearly they didn't sound very offended at the joke.
They didn't sound very offended. Some other people were. Breaking news this morning, which is very troubling. You know, the president has been talking about this as a problem. Senator Dick Durbin in the Senate has been taking the lead on this practice called inversion, whereby American companies, big American companies, buy a much smaller company in another a foreign company, whether it's in the UK or in Ireland or in Denmark or in Canada or whatever, and then move their headquarters operations to that second company in order to avoid paying U.S. taxes, a practice called inversion. Dick Durbin is trying to get Congress to do something about that. If Congress does not act, the president has indicated that he may very well do so. This morning, breaking news is that Burger King is the latest going down this road. They have announced their intention to buy a much smaller fast food chain in Canada called Tim Hortons.
Tim Hortons, which is sort of legendary in Canada.
I never heard of. I've never been inside of one. But Burger King, if this happens, or even if it becomes a real threat, I think for sure you're going to see President Obama take as much executive action as he can to try to stop this practice of inversion until Congress is able to get its stuff together and deal with the problem.
If we can't keep a company as American as Burger King,
I mean, Burger King
here in America.
Yeah, and the idea is the only reason they're doing this is to avoid paying U.S. taxes, to become colossal tax cheats. We should not let that happen. And I'll be back with a parting shot on President Obama's vacation.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment, and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
Ad Council. The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Okay, President Obama's vacation is over. Now he's back in the White House, so the Obama haters will finally will have to find something else to bitch about. For the last 2 weeks, they've been complaining nonstop about his vacation. Some say he should not have gone on vacation at all because there's too much going on. Others say he shouldn't take so much vacation, and in both cases, they are dead wrong, and they're on pretty thin ice. Remember, George H.W. Bush went to Kennebunkport, Maine for 25 days, the day after he launched the first Gulf War. And, of course, George W. Bush went to Crawford for the entire month of August, no matter what was going on. As for the numbers, President Obama's now taken 138 days of vacation total. By this time in his presidency, George W. had taken 407 days vacation. In the end, Bush took 879 vacation days. That's more than 2 years of his presidency, including 77 trips to Crawford, 9 of them in his first year as president. So there may be a lot of things to criticize President Obama about, but not for taking too much vacation time. That's my parting shot for today, folks. Have a great Monday. Come back and see us again tomorrow morning.
Bill Press Show.